What's going on, guys? Christian here from CK Wraps. So today I'm going to actually show you what vinyl brand I think is easiest to use for beginners. Again, this is my personal preference and personal opinion, but it is a vinyl brand that I'm very familiar with. I've been using it for many years. I'm also very fond of it. It is very easy to install. It does have its pros and cons. Now, if you guys are looking for new and updated installation techniques and things like that, like how to stretch over a large area, don't forget to check out my website, ckwraps.com. I'll put a link in the top corner and in the description below for you. These are up close 4K videos, better camera angles, that sort of thing. We're also giving away a $100 gift card for Wrap of the Month contest. Sign up. There's a lot going on there. There's a forum and a discussion board for you guys to ask me questions and ask each other questions and just post your own pictures and that sort of thing. Also a location board. So let's get to the actual best brand of vinyl to use for beginners. I'm going to take this BMW M3 mirror as an example. This is an E46 M3, and I'm going to show you what we can basically do with this vinyl and what I think about this film particularly. This film is Avery Dennison. Okay, this is Avery Dennison SW900. This particular color is satin pearl white. Satins tend to be a little bit easier, I find, to use than, let's say, a gloss metallic, but a solid gloss color is the easiest pretty much across the board as far as brands go. The solid gloss colors will be the easiest from brand to brand to brand. They'll be they're easier versions of their film to install. Matte metallics tend to be a little bit harder to install because if you stretch a matte out too far or you heat it up too much, it gets shiny. You can also disperse the metallic pigments depending on how dense that is when it comes to actually installing those films. So keep in mind, gloss is usually a bit easier. Satin is pretty easy though, on the other hand. This film is terribly easy to install, but it does have its pros and cons, okay? What I like about it is that it's very pliable. It's the most pliable film in room temperature. There isn't anything that even compares to it. I've experimented with all different kinds of brands, you know, off brands, Chinese brands, no-name brands, all the brand names there is, and nothing feels like this at all, okay? Now, you're limited to color selection, okay? So if you decide to use this and only this, you are limited, you are limiting your market. You're not gonna be able to open up or separate yourselves from others who are wrapping. So you wanna keep in mind that you do wanna improve on your skill level. Now this vinyl could be used, I mean, I could probably teach someone how to use this in a day. It could be used by a child, in my opinion. It is very easy to use. There's very low energy exertion. You don't need a lot of heat. And it does work well in ambient room temperature, you know, sitting around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, or let's say 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, or 70 to 74 Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. It does work very well. It does work well even colder temperatures. It does not snap very well or very easily. It maintains its structure. But on the other hand, if you do heat this film, it does tend to be easy to overstretch, okay? So overstretching the film will lead to failure on the edges. On top of that, it does have a lower adhesion than most other brands, I find, okay? That's just personal experience from all the installs that I've done using Avery Dennison. You know, it is thin, pliable, works great in ambient room temperature, but the adhesive is a little bit lower as far as the tack goes. You know, make sure you're post-heating, make sure you're alleviating tension on the edges and that sort of thing. Again, more videos like that on my website, but you know, it is easy to install, okay? The finishes are good quality. You know, I have no discrepancies really with the actual finish of an Avery film. Gloss, matte metallic, satin, pearl, that sort of thing. You know, they're all fairly nice as far as the pigment goes and the finish goes. Now, there is one thing about Avery that is a downside in the finish, is that it can leave a lot of little tiny dots on the actual surface of the panel. So now this is a slidable film, okay? This is one of the things that makes it easy. But when you slide this film around, this has like a microbead technology embedded into the adhesive. So when you push the film down, the microbeads go into the adhesive, and then that creates bond with the actual panel itself. Now, when you slide this film across a hard body line, let's say the top of the fender here or the hood right here, for example, if you take this and you slide it across, those microbeads, they tend to start rolling or loosening up and start stacking on top of each other. That's from what it looks like to me. You know, there may be a more scientific explanation for that, but that's to me what it looks like. These microbeads are sliding around, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the film being slidable, okay? You know, all films are repositionable. All you have to do is lift them up and put them back down, but this is an actual slidable film, so it tends to not actually bond right when you put it down on a surface. Makes it very easy to do like large panels like hoods and roofs for the horizontals without using any tack reducer or anything like that at all. You know, this is one of those films where you pretty much don't even need any tack reducer at all for any part of this installation because it is very low initial tack, almost none, next to none I would say. Sometimes it does grab a little bit, but most of the time it doesn't. When it does grab on a hard body line, what happens is, again, you get those beads stacking up on top of each other. That's what it looks like. They start moving around, and then you get what looks like to be debris or dirt underneath the wrap. It looks like it. It's not. It's the nature of the beast, okay? So that's one of the key characteristics of this film that make it easy to install. I'm going to, again, show you how to do this on the mirror, but I'm going to talk about what makes this film what it is to me in general and how it is to install. So, again, that slidable feature makes this film very easy to install. On top of that, it is probably the thinnest film on the market as far as, you know, how many microns this is. Now when I say mil, I mean micron. So we're talking thousandths of an inch here. So let's say it's 3.2 mil. Well, it's 3.2 one-thousandths of an inch, okay? It's very thin. Most films tend to hover around, let's say, 3.6 to 4-ish, somewhere around there. I know Vvivid gets up around 3.8, 3.9. You know, Hexus even can be even thicker around there too. Oracal, stuff like that, they can get up around the 4 mil mark. You know, how much of a difference does this actually make? It does make a difference. But what also makes a difference is the actual components, basically what they're putting into the film to make it pliable. You know, the actual chemicals that they're using to make this a stretchy film right off the bat, even in cooler room temperatures. You know, not all films are created equal, and no one can actually, I believe, make the most perfect film because each manufacturer has their own patents on a product. Now, having a patent on a product, okay, so we have the patent on this type of air release, so now we have to come up with our own air release. We have a patent on this type of finish. We have to come up with our own type of finish. And so, you know, across the board, let's say we take 6 brands, and if we combined all the best qualities or all the best characteristics of those brands, we would have probably the perfect film. But again, everyone's in competition here, and you know, we're not going to ever really get the most perfect product. Right now, we're not talking about the most perfect product. We're talking about the easiest to install, okay? This will help you get the job done, a product like this, if you're really struggling in the beginning. You know, our other films great, like Hexus, Vvivid, Oracal. You know, 3M has its pros and cons too. You know, 3M has a very strong adhesive. It's so strong that I find that it leaves glue lines, and that's, you know, the downside to me. You know, does Avery have a weaker adhesive, but then it leaves the dots? Yes, okay, but the dots are, to me, are less noticeable than the actual glue lines in 3M, so I would prefer to choose, let's say, Avery over 3M in that sense, and also because this is also more pliable. Another thing to mention here, as far as a con goes, is that this film right here is very thin, right? So being thin, it's not very impermeable to weathering and stone chipping and things like that, you know, like natural wear and tear. Let's say, you know, pebbles are flying off on the highway and you're driving, you know, and they're hitting the front end. Yeah, you're more likely to get a speckled front end with a product like this than a thicker product, let's say like Hexus or Vvivid, for example. You know, those products will hold up a little bit better because they're a little bit thicker in the end. You know, so if you're looking for something along more lines of paint protection, you know, those products will maybe help you out a little bit more in that area. You know, if you really want paint protection, you just go with paint protection film. You know, we're talking 6 to 8 micron. You know, it's fairly thick and it's made out of a different component all in all. So it's much more pliable, much more flexible, stretchy. So when stones hit it, that sort of thing, they bounce off a lot easier. But paint protection film isn't quite as pliable as a cast film like this. Now this is a cast film, okay? There's calendared and cast films. You don't use calendared films for wrapping compound curves like mirrors, bumpers, even hoods, for example. You know, you won't be able to stretch it very well. It'll shrink a hell of a lot, and you're just gonna have a hell of a time doing it. This is where you get into running into the cheap eBay stuff, you know, where you're getting a roll of chrome for like $300-400. Do not buy that stuff. It's probably calendared, and you're only gonna be able to wrap a wall or a table with it. So, you know, good luck getting it on a car. I've seen a lot of people have struggled with that kind of stuff. So keep in mind, you're getting what you pay for. Stay in the area of cast films. That's what you want to do. Again, this is a cast film. Now, they're all cast films in the end. You know, Oracal, PWF, Vvivid, APA, Hexus, all of them, okay? Now, as far as their color change films goes, now they have calendared films, but they don't typically use those for cars, car wraps. You know, so stay in the cast film range. You're gonna have a ton of colors to choose from when it comes to that stuff. So what we're gonna do here, I'm just gonna show you how I can wrap this mirror basically without adding any heat. Now the temperature in here, we're sitting around 70 degrees Fahrenheit or roughly around 19 degrees Celsius or so. It's a little bit cooler, not the warmest. It's winter, I shut off the heat so we can get better volume in here. But I'm gonna actually show you what it's like to wrap this mirror with no heat, and also gonna show you what it's like to actually put it, or add a little heat to the mirror wrap. Again, is it the best film to use as far as beginner goes? Yes, it's easier, it's less exerting, you know, but it does wanna pull back, okay? So keep that in mind, lower tack, let's do this. So again, this film is extremely pliable, okay? We're gonna see on the backing that it says Avery Dennison, right there. We know we have a true product here. I know because I use this on a Tesla Model X. Now, the adhesive, if we take note, it's white, okay? And then if we look very closely, we can see, if you look very, very closely, you can see all the little squares. That is the air release pattern sorry, it's a honeycomb shape, it's not a square, in the actual adhesive itself. So when we take this film, again, it's a little bit colder in here, we can actually just stick it to the film, stick it to the mirror, and I can stretch this very freely right now in room temperature without adding any heat. This makes it easier to do cold stretching, okay? So when we talk about cold stretching, we're stretching the film in without adding any heat, basically. But cold stretching is subject to your room temperature, right? So if it's like 50 degrees, okay, it's cold. If it's like 100 degrees, then it's hot, okay? So if it's 100 degrees and we're stretching the film without adding any heat, well, we have 100 degrees in the air already, so the film is already pliable. But right now we're sitting at, like I said, around 70. Now what I can do with this film is this mirror is actually PPF'd, so the film may not stick all that well. But what I can do is I can actually stretch this film out without even adding any heat. It's very, very pliable. So once we stretch the film out without adding any heat, all we have to do is add a little bit of heat to shrink it all back down, and we're done. You know, so we can see like I've gotten a whole bunch of this done, and I haven't even added any heat yet. Now, is this the right way to do it? No, I'm not showing you the right way to do the mirror. I'm just showing you that the film itself is very pliable. The problem that people have with Avery, and I find actually a lot of professionals, they prefer 3M over Avery. I think simply because of the adhesive on 3M is much stronger. This film, I'm gonna grab the heat gun. The adhesive is a little bit weaker. So, you know, it doesn't want to stick all that much. And I mean, it is sticking to PPF, but you know, let's squeegee it down. Let's just see how much bond we actually have right now. It's very low, okay? It's very, very low. Does the film cure over time? Yes, it cures over time. We're talking about 72 hours here in room temperature, stored in room temperature, for all these air channels to actually kind of like seal up and the actual adhesive to self-level, okay? That's what you want. So that'll give you a full bond at that point. Let's try to swing the cable around here. One sec, there we go. So 72 hours is basically your cure time here with this film. Now, if we add heat, let's see if I can move this mirror a little bit, we can't. Let's add some heat. Now, as soon as we add heat, and if we add heat to any film, it all becomes pliable. Now, this film right here takes less heat to actually make it pliable. So you're not gonna sit here for quite as long heating the film as you would a thicker film or a film that is more rigid right off the bat. This film is more pliable just naturally as it is. So when we add a little bit of heat, again, with it being thinner, it's going to heat up and become pliable much faster. Now this creates the opportunity to work quickly, but it also creates the opportunity for overstretching. So as soon as we do that, I can take this film and stretch it like crazy, okay? That's way overstretched right now. I'll tell you that for sure. Because what would happen here is if I cut this film on the bottom, it's all gonna wanna pull up. Now let's take the film and add heat and pull it across this way. And you're gonna see what happens when I overstretch it. But you can see right here that I'm actually very easily able to stretch this film out without adding any heat even right now, okay? Just give it time. So let's add heat. On top of that, the air release does work very well. So we add a little bit of heat and we're done. So we can just actually take this and we can destroy how far we stretch with this film. Now, that's a lot, okay? This makes it possible to stretch and wrap around objects, okay? The more pliable the film, the easier it is going to be able to get the film around an object. If the film is very rigid, it's going to be hard to get the film around an object. Now, the problem with this right now is that if I actually cut here on the very end, this film, because I stretched it too far past the edge, it's gonna actually pull back, okay? Because it's very pliable, so it allowed me, with the heat, to stretch it very far across that edge. Now, in the end, your balance, your material handling with heat, and your balance with stretching is very important. So you have to understand that every single one of these brands that are out there, they all work a little bit differently. Again, this one I find is just easier in general to use than most. Let's cut the end here and just kind of see what happens. Now, if I want to go even further with this, actually I won't even cut it yet. If I want to go further with this, we can go nuts with this, okay? We can actually take this, and I could probably almost wrap this whole mirror in one piece. But does that mean it's going to last? Hell no. Let's do it. Most films won't even allow me to get the film down in one piece, but we can go bonkers with this stuff because it's just that pliable, okay? Now I have some wrinkles up here, so again, we'll take it, and I'm just gonna try and get this film down and around. Oh, there we go, the mirror moved finally. I wanted it to move earlier. Get this film down and around, and we're gonna see what happens here. So let's heat and shrink this area here, because I just wanna show you that it's possible. This film makes it possible to wrap the mirror in one piece. Is that the right way to do it? Not necessarily, okay? So it will give you the illusion, and this is my point here, it will give you the illusion that, oh, I'm able to do all this in one piece. Boom. You know, it's almost there. I'm not really even trying right now. You know, if I was actually making an effort to make this a one-piece mirror, yeah, I could do it. You know, I could get very, very close. So this is where failure comes in, okay? So now if we just take this, and I'm not gonna cut on the actual mirror itself, but I'm gonna cut the film back a little bit down here. I'll squeegee it down on the bottom, and I'm just gonna cut it, and I'm gonna heat it. And I'm gonna cut it off from the edge here on the front. Okay, so it probably won't fail right here because I didn't stretch to this edge, but it should want to fail basically all around the bottom here because I stretched a lot down, and around this edge right here. So let's bring the camera down and let's see what happens. We're just going to add heat. I can already see it moving. Right underneath here, it's pulling back. All under here. Let's check the edge over here. I can see it pulling back off this edge. Look at that edge right there. Okay, so my technique in installing this was A, wrong, but B, because the film allowed me to stretch it so easily and so effortlessly across this mirror that I was able to overstretch the film. Again, it is easier to use because less heat, it's more pliable in ambient room temperature, but it does have its downfalls. Again, the finish on it, very good. It does maintain its finish very well, even when overstretched. So, you know, that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, this is the satin pearl white, so it does tend to keep its finish a little bit better than, you know, let's say it was matte black, but, you know, it's a good film. You know, this is again one of my favorite films to use as far as installation goes because it is very pliable. Now we can go through every single one of these brands over here, and I can show you basically how to install it and what the pros and cons are. Again, that's what my website is for now, but this is going to show you that, you know, this film, and again, I'm telling you guys out of personal experience that this film is probably the easiest film to use as a beginner, at a beginner level. Yes, you can overstretch it, but that is one of the lower cons to the actual installation process here. Now, how much time, if I were to take the same car, let's say Vvivid has satin pearl white, let's say Avery has satin pearl white, I'll take the exact same car and wrap that car in one of each. How much time do I save using Avery versus Vvivid? I would say 1 to 2 hours, about there. That just depends on obviously the intricacies of the car, that sort of thing. But on average, I'll probably save about 1 to 2 hours using Avery over Vvivid because Vvivid just takes a little bit longer to soften up or heat up. Same thing with like Hexus or Orcal. You know, I need to add a little bit more heat, I have a little bit more you know, tender love and care, a little more TLC, that sort of thing. You know, those things start to add a little time on to the actual installation process. While Avery, again, it's a little bit more pliable in ambient room temperature, so if it's just perfect in here, yeah, we can kind of fly through it a little bit faster with a little bit less effort involved in the end. Again, limited colors. You know, you're gonna choose from maybe 80 to 100 colors, something like that. Colors and finishes, maybe it's over 100 now. I don't know, I haven't ever counted what's in the book, but you know, there is a lot to choose from. Maybe this video is gonna get Avery a whole bunch of sales, I have no idea, but it is a wonderful film to use and it's something that I do enjoy using. When it comes to certain colors, let's say everyone has a gloss gray. Customer comes in and they want a gloss gray. I'm gonna go with the brand that has the nicest looking gloss gray for that matter. If it's all exactly the same shade and they're not particular with the brand, I'm gonna choose whatever brand makes sense as far as cost goes. You know, if we're paying an extra $600 a roll for a finish that's mildly better, then I'll let the customer know. But if they don't seem to care, then we'll go with something more mid-range. I'm always going to choose basically the best product to use for the most part when a customer's picking a more general color. General color meaning like white, gray, black, whatever. You know, some colors other brands just don't have. Like there's some crazy like grays with pearls in it, and like, you know, certain whites with metallics, and you know, Hexus has a ton of colors. Oracal has different like color shift stuff. 3M has different color shift stuff. Avery has different color shift stuff. So again, they each kind of have their own set of colors, but they do have a lot that are the same from brand to brand. So as far as it goes with me, I typically choose whatever looks the nicest in the end. I do not go with the ease of installation. I go with whatever looks the best as far as product goes and quality. Quality product, durability, and the finish, all that sort of thing in the end. In the end, we're talking, you know, maybe a couple $100 price difference for these rolls, not a whole lot. When you get up into chrome and brushed metal and things like that, yes, it becomes a little bit more costly as far as the brands go, as far as where the price jump goes, especially into chrome, gets really crazy. But even color flip stuff or color flow stuff compared to brushed metal, price sort of close, you know, carbon fiber, that sort of thing, they're all kind of in there. So those specialty finishes are sort of like more in the middle, and then you get into chrome, which is like more of a high-end finish, costs a lot more money. Again, you want to be able to offer people options, and you want to be able to offer them basically all the brands that, you know, you can trust. You know, I'll leave that up to you guys as far as what you want to choose to use, but again, this is just my personal opinion on the film that I like using. The film that I think is more suited for a beginner level. Again, children could use this stuff. It is very easy. It's not hard to use. You do have to rely on technique and skills. It's not just no technique and no skill. You have to have technique and skill, okay? But you're gonna need a little bit less technique and skill to use this product right here. Again, I hope the video was informative and helpful for you guys. Don't forget to check out my website, ckwraps.com. Again, link in the top corner and in the description below for you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Take care.